Welcome, everyone. I call this meeting for August 13th, 2024, meeting of council to order at 4:30 p.m. This meeting will be held in a hybrid manner where members of council, staff, and the public can participate electronically. This meeting is being live streamed and recorded and will be available on the township website. Notice is hereby provided that under the authority of the Municipal Act 2001 and in accordance with the Municipal Freedom of Information and Protection of Privacy Act, that all information attained is considered part of the public record. All rules apply to the meeting as if everyone was attending in person, and if there's a problem with the technology impacting the proceedings of a meeting, the meeting may be recessed. So at this time, I would ask everyone to rise for the playing of the national anthem. We acknowledge that we are being hosted on the ancestral lands of the Haudenosaunee, Mississauga, and Omama people. We acknowledge and welcome the presence of all Indigenous people, including the Métis, Inuit, and other First Nations from across this vast land, who also make this place home. The lands we are on today are recognized by the Two-Row Wampum, Dish with One Spoon Treaty, Treaty 27, and the Crawford Purchase. So the next item up is the confirmation of the agenda. Do I have a mover for the confirmation? Councillor Broderick, so moved that the agenda of the August 13th, 2024 meeting of council be confirmed as circulated, seconded by Councillor Parks. All in favor? Motion has passed. Are there any declarations of pecuniary interest or the general nature thereof for open session this evening? Seeing none. Next is a motion to go into closed session. If someone would like to move the motion and read the recommendation.
I move that council now move into closed session to consider personal matters about an identifiable individual, including municipal employees, related to the OPP Detachment Board Joint Community Member Representative, and a proposed or pending acquisition or disposition of land by the municipality, purchase of property owned by the municipality pursuant to Section 239B and C of the Municipal Act.
So moved by Councillor Willis, seconded by Deputy Mayor Townend. All in favor? welcome everyone. We will reconvene the meeting. Just for the information of people that are signing in now, we did start our council meeting at 4:30 this evening, and we have been in closed session since then until we came back to reconvene open. So coming out of closed, we will have a rise and report in just a moment, but before doing that, I would turn to Councillor Willis to provide us with a declaration.
Yes, during closed session, I declared a pecuniary interest in one of the agenda items because I have a business relationship with one of the individuals involved.
Thank you. So for the rise and report, we do have some motions that are coming forward into open session that we will be voting on this evening. And the first one, I would just ask the Clerk's Department if they can bring it up on the screen for us. Thank you. Council, there is our first motion coming out of closed. Do we have a member that wishes to make a motion on this? Councillor Broderick?
I will make a motion that council direct staff to begin negotiating Paddington for the sale of lot 10 in Royalist East Business Park. Also declare lot 10, plan 29M-10 in the Royalist East Business Park surplus to municipal needs, and direct staff to give notice in accordance with bylaw 2004-033, and that council authorize the mayor and CAO to send all documents necessary for the transaction with terms and conditions.
Thank you. So moved. Seconded by Councillor Budrick. Any comments from council? Call the question. All in favor? Motion is passed. We have another motion that will be coming up on the screen. It's the Loyalist East Business Park land pricing. Council, is there a member that wishes to make this motion this evening? Councillor Broderick. So moved. Seconded by Councillor Willis. Any comments? In council, seeing none, call the question. All in favor? Motion is passed. And the final one coming out of close will be up on the screen. Okay, we have it on the screen. Council, do we have a member that wishes to make this motion this evening? Deputy Mayor Townend.
I move that the report from the Engineering and Environmental Division dated August 13th, 2024, re-Bridge Street Road widenings be received. 2, that council directs staff to use the property valuation range proposed in the report in property acquisition negotiations with the 9 property owners along the west side of Bridge Street from Emma Street to Main Street. 3, that council declares surplus the lands being swapped with the owner of 7 West Street, Odessa, and directs staff to use the property valuation range proposed in the report in property acquisition negotiations with that owner. 4, that council authorize the mayor and CAO to sign the property purchase agreements with terms and conditions satisfactory to township legal counsel. And 5, the council authorize an increase of $30,000 to the previously budgeted amount for Bridge Battery South Cross reconstruction from the capital reserve.
So moved. Seconded by Councillor Budrick. Any comments from council? Call the question. All in favor? Motion is passed. And in addition to those motions that just came into open session, there was also direction enclosed, direction to staff on land disposal and acquisition, and direction to staff regarding OPP detachment board. Okay, so that completes the Rising report. So now we have some presentations, and I would ask the CAO, Rebecca Murphy, to come forward.
Thank you, Your Worship, members of council. It gives me great pleasure tonight to present Certified Municipal Manager Awards to several staff tonight. The CMM certificate is an accredited recognition offered by the Ontario Municipal Management Institute, which recognizes the professional and academic achievements of local government employees. It provides a career development framework for advancement and success in the public sector. Over 4,000 local government administrators, from frontline staff to senior managers, possess the credential, with over 800 members having a profession-specific enhancement awarded by their respective association, representing over 30 professions in local government throughout Ontario. Please join me this evening, and I'll call them up individually, in congratulating Anne Cantharaja, Chris Perry, and Jenna Campbell on all receiving the CMM Level 3 designation.
I'd just like to say well done for the staff members, all the staff members that made that accomplishment this evening. 3 were here. It's great to see staff taking the initiative and advancing their knowledge and being able to gain more experience as well. So the next item up will be open forum. Open forum is the first 15 minutes of the meeting has been set aside for open forum. Any individual may address council regarding an item on the agenda, excluding matters under the statutory public meeting section on the same agenda. Each person has 3 minutes to speak. Anyone wishing to speak can register in advance with the clerk's division or raise their hand. If participating virtually, they use the raise hand feature, and it's in Zoom. Today, we don't have any pre-registered, so I will go to the chambers first, and then I will go to Zoom and ask for you to use the raised hand feature. So in chambers, is there anyone in chambers that wishes to speak to council this evening under open forum? Seeing none, we will go to the virtual audience. If you're in the virtual audience and you wish to speak to council this evening under the open forum, please use the raise hand feature and we can bring you into the meeting.
Mr. Mayor, I don't see anyone in the virtual room.
Thank you. So that completes open forum. We have no delegations. So Housing Accelerator Fund 2.0. 0 is our first item. Open. Welcome staff to the meeting. Any additional information to be shared at this time or just here to answer questions?
Nothing to add, Your Worship.
Thank you. Council, we have the report with a recommendation before us. Is there someone that would like to make a recommendation or make a motion so we can have a discussion? Deputy Mayor Townend.
I move that the report from the Corporate Services Strategy and Innovation Department dated August 13th, 2024, Rehousing Accelerator Fund 2.0 be received, and that council approve the draft Housing Accelerator Fund action plan, including the commitment to undertake the process to permit 4 residential units as of right through a zoning bylaw amendment and official plan amendment, and support the submission of an application under round 2 of the Housing Accelerator Fund.
So moved. Second, do we have a seconder? Councillor Willis. Mover, any comments? Seconder? Other members of council, any questions or comments? Councillor Prodrick.
Thank you. And through your, this is just a general question. The previous application, when you get an application in and it is unsuccessful, do they give you feedback? And how's that helping us with this application?
Through the mayor, they do give you feedback. We actually had 2 occasions in which the director of economic growth and community development services and I chatted with CMHC representatives. The feedback that we got allowed us to make the recommendations that are included herein as we understand a little bit better some of the opportunities to strengthen the application. So these recommended additional initiatives are, I would say, as a direct result of some of the discussions we had through those meetings.
Any other questions or comments from council? Seeing none, back to the mover. The final, call the question. All in favor? Motion is passed. Next up is temporary borrowing bylaw. Welcome. Do you have any additional information this evening or just here if there's questions?
I'm here for questions. This borrowing bylaw is just an annual requirement from the Royal Bank of Canada. So there's nothing that's unusual and we have not borrowed anything this year. So.
Okay, thank you. So council, we have the report with the recommendation. Councillor Prodrick.
Thank you. I would move that the report from Finance Department dated August 13th, 2024, re 2024 temporary borrowing bylaw be received, and bylaw 2024-78 being a bylaw to approve temporary borrowing measures be enacted and passed together with completed Form 348 and Form 349, and the bylaw and Forms 348 and 349 be forwarded to the Royal Bank of Canada.
So moved, seconded by Councillor Parks. Any comments from the mover, seconder, other members of council? Call the question. All in favor? Motion is passed. The next is the tax policy 2024 provincial changes. Is there information you wish to share at this time or just answer questions?
Thank you, Worship. And just a summary of this. So the province of Ontario gave us a couple of different options with tax policy changes this past spring, and the policies are usually commented or put in place by the county. However, the county has asked for lower tier input. So the request is for us to, for council to make a decision as to whether or not how they would like to, or comments they would like to send back. The first part of it is talking in regards to a bylaw that would affect the implement a new multi-residential tax class, subclass. And if that happened, then that would give us 3 classes for multi-res. And this new subclass, we could actually have a lower rate. The intention of the government giving us this option was to try to promote new homes being, or at least new housing, purpose-built rental homes being built. The second option, they portion they talked about is a vacant tax, vacant unit, vacant home tax. The vacant home tax would be if somebody, for some reason that they had a cottage or some kind of a house that they had built and they did not have an occupancy, is that we could implement a program. We could actually tax them for having it vacant after a certain period of time. That option was available previously for larger municipalities, and at this point it's being offered for other municipalities of our size. But again, both of these programs are something that the county would have to implement. And so the questions coming to each of the lower tiers in the county as to whether or not we'd be interested in pursuing these.
Thank you. Council, we do have the report with the recommendation, and part 2 of the recommendation. There are a couple of options on the bottom of page 3 of 6 in our agenda. We'll be able to fill in what steps we would like to take. So with that, I'll turn to council. Is there anyone that would like to make a motion? Councillor Buber.
Recommendations that the report from finance dated August 23rd, 2024, RE tax policy 2024 provincial changes be received, and that council, let's get back down. Oops. The council requests that the county pursue options of implementing new multi-residential tax subclass. And that the council requests the county implement a vacant home tax program as well.
So moved. Do we have a seconder? Councillor Broderick?
I would second it just for conversation.
Okay, thank you. Mover, any comments?
Given the option that we could try and find an opportunity, we are as we know, low on rental properties in our municipality. This would give an opportunity for people to push in that direction to find some affordable housing for some people. On the implementing the vacant home tax program, I know we're looking at something on short-term rentals as well. That's a possibility, but this is a start, I guess.
Seconder, comments?
I would just question council requesting the county implement a vacant home tax program. I guess more of a question for the treasurer. Is that an issue in Loyalist? And B, would it be a significant cost to implement whatever has to go in place to do that?
Sorry, through your worship. The amount of vacancies that we have is an unknown at this point in time. So there would have to be a whole program that was implemented in order to find out what the vacancy rates are. There would be a cost for that, and the cost is having to have a bylaw enforcement and as well as staffing trying to find out exactly where the vacancies are. Once they are determined, then there's the additional costs of staff having to implement the program, to add the tax on, and then try to collect it as well. So that's the cost is for the enforcement.
I would just like to make a friendly amendment. I don't know if it's friendly, I hope it is. Just to drop the part about council requesting the county to implement a vacant home tax program at this time.
Okay, so it would only be for the multi-rent.
Yep.
Then. Okay. Mover, do you consider that a friendly?
Yes, I mean, it's kind of in the same vein of short-term rentals we were looking at it, just so yeah, we're going in that direction anyway. So yes, I would.
Okay. So in that case, the motion would only include council requests that the county pursue the option of implementing a new multi-rent residential tax subclass. So, seconder, is there any further comments at this time? Other members of council, any comments at this time? Seeing none, back to the mover for final. None, call the question. All in favor? Opposed? Motion is passed. Thank you. Next up is Industrial Community Improvement Plan Agreement with Lennox and Addington and with County of Lennox and Addington for Latham Pool Development. Got that backwards. Welcome again. Any further information at this time? We're just here to answer questions.
Yes, your worship, just to answer questions. I don't have any further comments.
Thank you. Council, just 1 second. I'm going to open the next. Yes, we do have our report and a recommendation. Is there a member that wishes to make a motion? Councillor Broderick.
I would make a motion that the report from Developmental Services Division dated August 13th, 2024, Industrial Community Improvement Plan Agreement with the County of Lennox and Addington for the Latham Pool Development be received, and that the mayor and CAO be authorized to sign an Industrial Community Improvement Plan Agreement with the County of Lennox and Addington.
So moved. Do we have a seconder? Councillor Willis. Any comments from the mover?
No, sir.
Seconder? Anyone else? Call the question. All in favor? Motion is passed. Structural renovation at Layer Cake Hall Addition. Come. Is there any additional information on this item at this time, or just here to respond to questions?
Just here for questions, Your Honor.
So with that, yes. Council, we have the report with a recommendation. Is there a member that wishes to put a motion on the floor? Call again. Is there a member that wishes to put a motion on the floor? Councillor Broderick.
That I would move that the report from the Engineering and Environment Division dated August 13th, 2024, restructural renovation at Layer Cake Hall addition be received, and that council authorize a transfer of $35,000 from capital reserve, and that council authorize pre-budget approval for 2025 in the amount of $220,000 to be funded from capital reserve fund.
So moved. Do we have a seconder? Councillor Broderick. Mover, any comments?
Just that reading the report and looking at some of the pictures, it's something that badly needs to be done. And again, with a lot of our older buildings, the later we leave something, the more damage or maybe the more cost would be involved. So I'm hoping that option 3 would be what the staff would look at.
You. Seconder, comments? Other members? Councillor Parks.
Thank you. Through the mayor's staff. Just a question. We recently went through renovations in the main part of the building. Just kind of wondering why this wasn't looked at the same time when that other concerns were brought forward on the structural side.
Through your worship. So it's really all about scope of work. So when considering that the original work for the original part of the building was solely to change or find a suitable paint chip so we could repaint the outside, we're very far away from that scope now. So to answer your question, really, they were only looking at the original building. So as a structural assessment, is that what we call it? A structural assessment had not been done on the entire structure. They were focusing on the original building. Yeah.
Just wonder if moving forward with these heritage buildings, maybe we should be doing that all at one time as opposed to doing it in part and parcel, because there's probably some cost savings for that if that's an option. Just a comment.
Yeah, through you, your mayor, that is the approach that we're taking now. So as you've seen with the Fairfield Goodside House, that is a complete rehabilitation. Obviously, the cost of that is much higher than the cost for the previous works for the layer cake hall, but it is capturing everything, and we're going in there and doing invasive investigations and opening up walls to make sure that any structural deficiencies like this are caught.
Councillor Willis.
The addition that we're talking about was built in the 1980s, so it's not historically significant. Well, is there an option of remove the addition? Or is that space that's absolutely critical to the building?
Through you, your worship. So that space, the primary function of it is the stairwell. There's other additional spaces, the music room and things like that, and some mechanical spaces, but that is the only interior access to the second floor. So to allow for programming and whatnot to occur upstairs, that space needs to continue to exist.
Any other comments or questions from council? Being none, I'll just give my 2 cents. I support the doing this, as was mentioned. The open space upstairs on the second floor is pretty significant, and it's also where the computers are. The students use it a lot. So it's very valuable to be able to continue to use that and have interior stairs. So the only question I had was, in reading the recommendation, it doesn't specifically say which option will be used. Is a decision already made on option 3, or is it to be determined at this time?
Yeah, at this time, staff intend to proceed with option 3. It's not in the recommendations in case during the design process, things change and we want to make sure we still have that flexibility to take the advice of our engineers. But that is the intent at this time, and that's how the budget has been structured.
Perfect. Thank you. Back to the mover, the final. Okay, call the question. All in favor? Motion is passed. Lakeside Ponds Phase 2, Stage 3, Blocks 104, 105, part lot control request. Good evening, welcome. Any further information at this time?
Through the mayor, no, we do not.
Thank you. With that, we have the recommendation before us. Council, is there a member that wishes to put a motion on the floor? Well, second time, is there a member that wishes to put a motion on the floor? Councillor Boudreaux.
That the report from Development Services Division dated August 13th, 2024, RE Lakeside Ponds Phase 2, Stage 3, Blocks 104 and 105, part lot control request be received, and that bylaw 2024-75
Mr. Mayor,
being
my apologies.
Okay. Please continue.
that bylaw 2024-75 being a bylaw to lift the partial control requirements for blocks 104 and 105 on registered plan 25M-69 for the Lakeside Ponds Phase 2, Stage 3 plan of subdivision be enacted and passed.
So moved, seconded by Councillor Broderick. Any comments from the mover, seconder, other members? Call a question. All in favor? Motion is passed. Next is Neil Road assumption of road bylaw. Anything to add on this one?
No, through the mayor, just here for questions. Thank you.
Thank you. With that, we have a recommendation. Is there a member that wishes to put a motion on the floor? Councillor Broderick.
I would move that the report from the Development Services Division dated August 13th, 2024, Neil Road assumption of road bylaw be received, and that bylaw 2024-77 being a bylaw to assume a portion of Neil Road described as Part 2 on Plan 29R-11399 be enacted and passed.
So moved. Seconded by Councillor Willis. Any comments from the mover? Seconder? Any other member? Call a question. All in favor? Motion is passed. Surplus land sale in Loyalist Estates subdivision. Okay. Any additional information?
Through the mayor, no, we're still just here for questions. Thank you.
Thank you. So council, we have the report with the recommendation. Would someone like to make a motion? Councillor Willis.
I move that the report from the Development Services Division, August 13th, 24, surplus land sale and Loyalist Estate subdivision be received. 2, that council declare surplus to the municipal need and dispose a portion of land described as a portion of Part Lot 10, Concession 1, Part 1 on 29R 9084, more specifically shown as Part 1 on Plan 29R 11377. 3, that council delegates authority to the mayor and CAO to execute all necessary documents to authorize the land transfer. 4, that the land being transferred be merged with the purchaser's land. 5, that prior to finalizing the transfer of the land, an easement be established with Bell Canada over Part Lot 10, Concession 1, Part 1 on 29R 9084 or a portion thereof. 6, that as part of the land transfer, an easement is established to benefit the township for the catch basin located on Part 1 on Plan 29R 11377. And 7, that any funds received from the sale of the lands be transferred to the Industrial and Business Parks Reserve.
So moved. Do we have a seconder? Councillor Broderick, any comments from the mover? Seconder? Anyone else? Call the question. All in favor? Motion is passed. Thank you. Next is the transfer from the Ferry Berthage Fees Reserve Fund. Welcome. Is there any additional information at this time or just answer questions?
Not at this time, just questions.
Thank you. Council, we have a report with a recommendation before us. Does a member wish to make a motion? Deputy Mayor Town.
I move that the report from the Transportation Division dated August 13th, 2024, retransfer from Berthage Fees Reserve Fund be received, and that council authorize a transfer in the amount of $42,858.26 from the Ferry Berthage Fees Reserve Fund as compensation for the direct expenses incurred for A, the Information Technology Upgrade Project, and B, final architectural design costs for the Ferry Dock Fender Modification Project.
So moved. Seconded by Councillor Willis. Any comments from the mover? Seconder? Other members of council? Being none, call the question. All in favor? Motion is passed. McEwen Walkway Retaining Wall Reconstruction. Any additional information? None?
Nothing at this time.
Councillor Broderick,
I'll move the recommendation.
please proceed.
I would move that the report from Public Works Division dated August 13th, 2024, McEwen Walkway Retaining Wall Reconstruction be received, and that council authorize an additional $200,000 from the Capital Reserve Fund for the McEwen Walkway Retaining Wall Reconstruction.
So moved. Seconded by Councillor Parks. Any comments from the mover?
Just a brief comment that it's a fairly well-traveled walkway, especially during the school season, and having walked it numerous times, it's badly in need of some tender, loving care.
Thank you. Seconder, no comments. Other members of council, any comment? Being none, call the question. All in favor? Motion is passed. Rural Transit Service Pilot Project Update. Just get it open here. There we are. And staff are here as well. Any updates or additional information at this time?
Yes, your worship, there actually has been a new development with this pertaining to this report and the potential delivery of the pilot program. Martin's Bus Service has advised staff this week that they will not be moving ahead with negotiations to deliver this service. As a result, staff have contacted 2 additional service providers within the Ontario Education Collaborative Marketplace, OECM, to see if either of these companies could deliver this service. At this time, one of the providers has responded and we're waiting for further information and discussion. Based on initial interest and the pricing that's included in the OECM agreement, and early calculations, they indicate that fare collection combined with the county funding would be sufficient to cover expenditures associated with one bus providing at a minimum a 12-hour a day, 5-day-a-week service. The routing would still provide dedicated service to the industrial lands during peak periods and a fixed route service between Bath, Odessa, and Amherstview at off-peak times. Final costs and routes would be pending negotiations with that service provider. It is still anticipated that if council wishes to extend the pilot service from April 1 to December 31st of 25, then the requirement of the $275,000 funding from the Provincial Gas Tax Reserve would still be required if we're able to negotiate with a service provider. If the OECM path doesn't come to fruition and council still wishes to move ahead with the pilot in 2025, provisions for this could be included in the 2025 budget, recognizing that the funding opportunity currently available would be lost. Therefore, the full cost of the pilot would need to be funded via fares and the Provincial Gas Tax Reserve. It is estimated that this funding requirement could be up to $400,000 pending procurement results and fare revenues. We also recommend that an extension request to October 1, 2024 be sought at the county level to allow time for further negotiations with potential service providers within OECM, given this new development. Based on this new information, we have provided some draft amended recommendations, and the clerk will bring them up now for this report.
Okay, thank you. Giving a minute for everyone to read over the recommendation. So with that information and the new recommendation, the member wish to put a a motion on the floor so that we can have further discussion and questions. Councillor Broderick.
I would move that the report from the Public Transportation Division dated August 13th, 2024, Rural Transit Services Pilot Project Update, expansion to Bath, Odessa, and Taylor Kidd Industrial Park be received. That council direct the county council representative to request a 1-month deadline extension to October 1st from Lennox and Addington County Council. That staff be authorized to finalize an agreement with the final routing with a service provider within the Ontario Educational Collaborative Marketplace to the satisfaction of the CAO for the Rural Transit Service Pilot Project. If an agreement cannot be reached with a service provider within the OECM, council authorized staff to procure pilot transit services regarding that this may not incur in time to utilize the community transportation grant funding currently available, but still wish to proceed with the pilot study, and that the mayor and CAO be authorized to execute the final agreement with the preferred service provider, and that the 2025 budget include the use of up to $400,000 from the Provincial Gas Tax Reserve in 2025 to fund the pilot project extension from April 1st, 2025 to December 31st, 2025, or the full pilot service from January 1, 2025 to December 31st, 2025.
So moved. Do we have a seconder? Mr. Willis? Mover, any comments, questions at this time?
I'm just wondering, through you, if the clerk could put the motion back up. I have a few, just
Yes.
given what we're seeing here tonight. So the 1 month deadline extension, what does that mean in terms of the service actually starting up?
Sorry. It really wouldn't impact the timing of the service if we're able to put it through the OECM provider. What it would do is give us a little bit more time to negotiate with them. We're hopeful that we could have something by September 1st, but given, we just found out about this yesterday, and we haven't actually had the, very much time to speak with an alternate provider, that would give us a little bit of breathing room to actually get that agreement in place, if it's possible.
And if I can just follow that up. Now, I know you can't discuss what negotiations maybe have already gone on, but given there was 2 other applications, or I guess providers that indicated interest, do you see any more beyond that? Like, if you open it up to everybody, or have you gone back to maybe the second or the third place? Put it.
I apologize. Through your worship, there were 3 possible providers that we could contact. We've now contacted all of them. They're in different zones, so we had to start with Martin's and we had to get permission to speak to the others. And we have done that. I have to say, I can say staff have been very quick in reacting and getting in touch with these other providers. If we're not successful with them and we can't secure a provider, then we would have to go to an alternate procurement. And that's why if we have to do that step, it takes time to do the competitive procurement, and we're not sure what we would get and how quickly that could be put into place. So that's why we're suggesting if that route happens, it wouldn't be till January 1.
And just a final one. So if that scenario played out, this would be outside the OECM? Is that, like, if you can't find obviously somebody there, you'd go outside? Okay. All right. Thanks.
Yep.
Seconder? Councillor Willis?
If I could ask you, can you do a bridge for me from the 275 that was in the report to the 400,000? Is that because we?
Through you, your worship, the 275 is if we actually are able to get the service up and running and we're able to utilize that funding, that would take us from the end of when the funding would end, March 31st. So that would take us from April 1st all the way to December 31st. And then the other service would only be a 1-year service. It would go from January 1 until December 31st if we're not able to utilize that funding.
Just more of a comment that as this plays through, I hope that residents see the value of it and use whatever we come up with, because we don't want it to be a 1-year one-off that, we can't make decisions 5 years down the road if there's not a need for it, or at least a use of it.
Thank you. I'd just like to thank staff as well with a bit of it's kind of like nailing Jello to the wall. But they have worked very hard and looked at every avenue to be able to try and make this come to fruition, and I appreciate that. And it's unfortunate with the last minute changes and withdrawals, but staff are working hard to try and come up with options that will make it work. So I just wanted to note that. And if there's no further comments, I will call the question. All in favor? Motion is passed. Thank you. And the next is to go into committee of the whole. So I look for a motion to go into the committee of the whole. Deputy Mayor Towner. So moved, seconded by Councillor Prodrick. All in favor? Motion is passed.
Right, I call this committee of the whole to order at 6:46. Are there any declarations of pecuniary interest or the general nature thereof? Seeing none. Items for consideration for committee of the whole, 13.3.1 procurement policy and delegation of authority for procurement. Over to the treasurer.
Thank you, Deputy Mayor. The report speaks to, so what we've done is we've done a complete update of the procurement policy. We've taken the current procurement policy and we've made some amendments to it. So I am going to walk you through a PowerPoint and just give you some highlights that they were included with the report as well. But the procurement policy was last reviewed in 2019, and the procurement policy is required for operational effectiveness. It's required under the Municipal Act that we have a procurement policy. And what we're doing with the policy is making some changes in order to increase some staff limits and procurement threshold limits. And that's going to be able to enable staff to be able to get a few things done a little faster without having multiple signatures on things in order to get it through. So I can just wait until it comes up on the screen. And we will, with the changes, once it is, if it is approved tonight, then we will go forward and we will do some training with staff so that both staff that we have currently will know what the differences are with the policy. And we will be making some upgrades as to what the process is. And then after, if we have new staff that are on board as well, bring them up to speed with how the procurement policy works. Procurement is something that it's a requirement for us before we are legislated as to limits and when we have to go out and do certain processes. So the policy that has been redrafted makes sure that we are still within those limits. As I indicated, it just makes things a little bit easier in order for us to be able to get the purchases made. But I wanted to walk through the what council's role is, because I think that's important that you understand, because council has an overseeing position with this. So in accordance with the best practices, the municipal procurement recognizes the clear separation between the political and the administrative functions, and that's very important. It's the role of council to establish the policy, and to approve the expenditures through the budget approval process. So that's really where the rubber hits the road with the council, is that you make sure that you are approving what is being procured, and that's in the budget process. So through this, the council delegates to the township employees the authority to incur expenditures in accordance with the approved budgets. And so to facilitate council's oversight with respect to the significant projects, council can, by resolution, require departments to obtain council's authority to initiate specific procurement. So even though this is saying that with a bylaw or with a budget in place, you're telling staff to go ahead and do the work and procure items, there may be some specific items that you want to call back and you want to make sure that you're getting some information on. So for instance, the W.J. Henderson project is huge. So even though you might have that approved in the bylaw, you still will probably want to have the ability to bring it back to take a look at it. So if something has got high value or involves significant risk. And just a note is that to avoid the potential appearance of any bias or political influence in procurement contract members of council will have no involvement in competitive procurement process from the time those procurement processes have been initiated from the advertisement to the issuance of the solicitation document until the contract has been entered into with successful bidder, except where council is required to approve a contract award in accordance with section 18 of the bylaw. So the conditions for delegated authority. Sorry. Let me pull it up here. So delegating the authority means that staff is able to go ahead and sign documents, and no contract award may be approved unless it's approved by annual budget, as we've indicated, and no contract may be entered into unless there's an issuance of a purchase order or an executed agreement, and no legal agreement can be executed unless the agreement or ancillary documents have been prepared in a form satisfactory to the CAO and the solicitor. We also have a financing lease policy, and that needs to be followed. And the delegation of authority to approve a contract does not apply to a contract where council is approved under section 18. And that is if there has to be a special, a legal agreement that's separate. So just talking about section 18, the following award of contracts do require council approval, and that is if it's an acquisition of goods, services, construction that is not already included in the budget, and such items that require pre-budget approval or post-budget amendments after budget's done, which you've already done even tonight. The council meeting approved that. Or if there's an irregularity or unresolved challenge in connection with the procurement, and in the opinion of the CAO and in consultation with the department director, the award of the contract is likely to expose the township to significant legal, financial, reputation risks. So you're not delegating everything. You really are, as a council, still responsible for anything that could cause any kind of risk. So that will come back to you. We've changed the delegated authority, the procurement limits. So anything under $500, if it's not covered by a blanket purchase order, or which it can't be purchased by a purchase card, can be made by staff to procure the item with their supervisor's approval. This is important. We've changed the low-cost procurements. They've increased from $10,000 to $25,000. And again, as I indicated earlier, that has to do with the cost of goods. So it's just that things are costing a lot more. And so that's what the main reason we moved that up. Procurements between $25,000 and $75,000 require invitation competition with no less than 3 quotes. So that's a little bit, those are higher limits as well, but 3 quotes are still going to be obtained. Any procurement over $25,000 still requires 2 signatures, and any procurement requiring a legal agreement due to a contract being complex requires the CAO and the mayor's signatures. So you're going to see as well within the bylaw, I'll show it to you in a minute, but the delegated procurement authorities and when a contract needs to be entered into. So there's still going to be 2 signatures that are required on that. So we're still going to see it in the finance office before it goes forward, but the department head's going to be able to sign off quite a few things. The delegated authorities are under section B, and that's this ugly looking graph. Sorry, I apologize. It's hard to read, but it does break down the difference in the service levels and when and what authorities are going to be required in order once the procurement gets started. The final discussion is that, so within the delegated procurement, some of the directors can actually delegate authority within their own department. So this shows that there are levels of staff that are under the director that can start a procurement and get it processed so that we can go ahead with and signing invoices, just so that, again, to try and expedite the purchases and ensure that we are still making sure that there's appropriate authority. And then some other items of note. All of the township employees are responsible for complying with this bylaw in all of their procurement activities, and they must clearly understand the obligations. Staff shall ensure a copy of the legally executed contracts relating to procurement are in a format acceptable by the clerk, and a copy of the original contract is with the clerk's department. All processes related to the policy will be updated and reviewed to be ensure compliance. So we have processes outside of this. and training will take place, as I indicated earlier. One thing as well, just to let you know, is that we will be doing an update again every 5 years, and we will be reviewing this on a regular ongoing basis. So if there is any issues that we find or if the legislation changes, we'll bring it back to council. Okay. So the recommendation is that the proposed amendments to the procurement policy as set out in the report be approved and that staff be directed to bring forward the updated procurement policy to September 10th meeting for council's consideration. Included with the report was a copy of the current bylaw marked, highlighted in red with the track changes in it so you can see it, and also another copy of the bylaw with draft written across it so you can see a clean copy because it is kind of hard to read the track changes. So, thank you.
Thank you to the treasurer. I'd suggest we get a recommendation on a motion on the floor, and then we can go for discussion from there. Yep, Councillor Potter.
Thank you. Recommend that the report from the Finance Department dated August 13th, 2024, re-procurement policy and the delegation of authority for procurement be received, and that the proposed amendments to the procurement policy as set out in the report be approved, and that staff be directed to bring forward updated procurement policy to the September 10th, 2024 meeting for council's consideration.
So moved. A seconder. Councillor Willis. Councillor Broderick.
Totally in support of this, given the financial changes that have happened since 2019, I think you said it was, and also having worked in a rather large environment previously, that you need to sometimes get stuff quick and it moves along any of our processes. And best of all, it may prevent council from having to nitpick or watch over everything, and trust our staff to do what is required.
Councillor Willis. Other members of council. Of the committee, I should say. Mr. Mayor.
I find it interesting, the increases reflect the cost of living, and when you see it in numbers, you realize how much the cost of living has gone up in the last 5 years. But I do agree with the increases matching the cost of living. We have to stay up to the times. And although when I was reading it, I had some processing to do personally with the revisions that were made. But the more I reflected on it, I liked the idea of the elected being removed from the award process and leaving it up to the experts and our professionals to be able to do the awards and carry it out with the exceptions that were noted. If there's something that comes back that is unusual or contentious, then council can always be drawn into it. But I like the fact that the process is delegated to the appropriate people to carry out under the restrictions and the requirements of that delegation. Thank you.
Last call for comments. Call the question. All those in favor? Motion is carried. Thank you, Madam Treasurer. We come now to 13.3.2 Transit Route 10 frequency considerations and the director and manager. I believe you have a PowerPoint as well, Director?
I do. Just a couple slides. No, the slides, Gaurav, I thought Gaurav sent them. Okay, I apologize. I thought we had slides, but maybe not. How about I speak to the report? I apologize. So we just really wanted to reiterate, no, it's okay. Reasons why we have made the recommendations that we have. So changes to Route 10 are scheduled to begin on September 3rd. These route changes have been initiated to increase schedule reliability, which is the most frequent complaint received from passengers. The impacts of this change require time for data collection and analysis. The proposed pilot study could also positively impact the pressures on Route 10, depending on passenger preferences to travel directly to Gardner's Town Centre during peak hours. Loyalist staff are discussing with Kingston Transit staff the possible partnership opportunities related to their on-demand transit service delivery pilot. And, you know, any additional future direction will be requested as those discussions become more concrete. I apologize. Changing to a 30-minute frequency requires an additional bus, which comes with a significant capital expenditure for Kingston Transit. And that requires a 12-year financial commitment from the township that includes the capital component in addition to operating expenses. And, you know, based on all of these factors, it would be prudent to defer a long-term financial commitment of this nature until all of these initiatives can be assessed. And then had the recommendations, but you have those in front of you. And any questions?
Committee, what would we like to do with this? To get something on the floor for discussion. See the recommendation. Councillor Willis.
I move that the report from the Public Transportation Division dated August 13th, 2024, re-transit Route 10 frequency considerations be received, and 2, that the Committee of the Whole recommend that the Route 10 service frequency be maintained at 60-minute service for 2025, and 3, that the Committee of the Whole recommend that the service frequency be reviewed again in 2025 for possible addition of a 30-minute service in the 2026 budget, dependent on the impact of transit route changes and pilot studies initiated.
Mover.
We heard earlier that there's a bigger plan for transit in the area, and I think that we really do need to see the response to that project before making this kind of a financial commitment, particularly if it's a 12-year financial commitment. I think we need to take a pause on this for now.
We're just getting back to pre-COVID ridership, so I think that waiting to see if there's a continued spike this year would maybe warrant looking at it in another year.
Anyone else? Councillor Broderick.
Just a couple of comments that, you know, one of the things I hear a lot is about the dependability of the service. And honestly, I don't see how just maintaining it at 60 improves the service unless I'm missing something. I think, you know, a 30-minute service again would be, I think, preferred. And as I read, you know, some of the highlights out of the report I pulled out were things about, you know, there are times when there's crowding, and I would assume that's going to be the 9 o'clock, 7 to 9, like the morning rush and the evening rush. And, you know, I think to put it off to 2026, I don't know if that's the best strategy when we're trying to encourage people to use the service, and I'll just leave it at that.
Others? Mr. Mayor.
I guess I'd be very interested in the review that's going to be done regarding the 30-minute service. I've received different comments and concerns from some of the residents, some of the users. And I know when we were trying to build the transit, one of the things that kept being discussed is we need to be able to provide a reliable service, which means a timely service so that it can be trusted, so that people don't invest in vehicles, to be honest. It's always one of those things where they can take transit or invest in a vehicle. And if we can keep them on transit, then that's better for everyone and better for us with the ridership. So I understand we can't do we can't magically provide data immediately on a 30-minute service. So we do have to have a time to be able to do the review. I do look forward to that review coming forward though, because I think from the feedback I'm getting and from what I'm seeing, I think we're very close to the requirement for a 30-minute service, whether we're there or not, the data will prove that.
Anyone else? Yep. Final to you, Councillor Broderick.
Through the chair. Just a question to the director. In terms of a review, and here, this is my thought, I'm thinking out loud here, and just shoot me down if you want to shoot me down, that's fine. Could a review be in place and done so that at the start of the next school year, 25-26, something's in place? Is that an unreasonable timeline? I'm sure there's more to it than that, but I think that would be a reasonable starting point for a 30-minute service if that was the direction we were going.
Through you, your worship. We have to have time we would have to provide the information to Kingston Transit by September of 2025 to have it in January of 2026, because they have to build it into their budget. So our goal is to have the review done and about this time next year be able to say, yes, we should move ahead, or no, with all our other initiatives happening, we don't recommend this service based on the data that we're gathering. So if we want a bus for 2025 of this year, it would have to be approved now, and they would have to be adding it to their budget for the 2025 year.
Councillor Parks.
Thank you. Through the chair, just as a follow-up question in regards to that, knowing how long it takes to get vehicles, especially larger commercial vehicles, if the City of Kingston receives that information in September of 2025, is that going to allow them enough time to actually procure that other bus that will be needed for that service? Like, that would be a concern for me if we're going to roll to the 30-minute service.
Through your worship, that's what they have indicated to us. I'm not, like, through our conversations, that's what they have advised they could do.
Call the question. All those in favor? Motion is carried. Can I get a recommendation that the committee of the whole adjourn? Mr. Mayor, seconded by Councillor Parks. All those in favor? Motion is carried.
Okay, so we'll reconvene back in council. The next one up is are there any notices of motion for this evening's meeting? Seeing none, are there any direct motions to be brought forward this evening? Seeing none. Consent agenda. The items on the consent agenda can be voted on all at once, or if any member wishes to extract an item, they can ask for it to be extracted and it'd be dealt with individually. So with that, is there any item a member wishes to extract this evening? Seeing none, we can deal with them all together. There is a recommendation there. Is there a member of council that wishes to make that recommendation? Deputy Mayor Townend.
I move that all items in the consent agenda dated August 13th, 2024 be approved as presented and that the necessary action be taken.
So moved, seconded by Councillor Parks. Any comments from the mover? Seconder? Other members of council? I just have one, 15.9 Fairfield drinking water. They had a full review of the drinking water and all of the components. It was a very detailed reading the report. It was a little baffling, but the bottom line is we hit 100% with no recommendations for improvement. So I wanted to draw attention to that, both for the quality of the drinking water and also for the staff that maintain the system and are constantly watching it, monitoring and making improvements as needed. so that when a full investigation is done such as this, we come back with no further recommendations. Well done. That, I'll call the question. All in favor? Motion is passed. Announcements. Are there any announcements this evening from council? Deputy Mayor.
Yes, through you, your worship, I want to apologize to members of council and to the public. I had comments on item 11.3, and I'm not going to, reopen the issue, but because I voted against the motion, I feel I owe it to colleagues. I read the agenda over several days and make notes in lots of different places, and I could not find the notes that I wanted. The reason I voted against the motion is because I have issue with the fact that yet again municipalities are being asked to take out of our own pockets to fund provincial government initiatives for housing. And part of the issue is in that legislative change, we are not allowed to put any strings attached to those tax breaks, particularly in terms of affordability. So in my mind, in my opinion, it's yet another, corporate welfare scheme for developers that, is not make or break for them in terms of whether they proceed with a project, but does matter to us because it's lost revenue for taxes. So that's why I voted against it. And I felt I owed it to colleagues to make that clear. I don't usually vote against something without having some comments. So thank you for entertaining me.
Thank you for the clarification. Any other items to come forward under announcements this evening? Councillor Willis.
Just wanted to express condolences to the Miller family on Amherst Island. Everyone was very saddened with the passing of Shirley Miller, who, if you've watched the Legacies of Loyalist video, you would be very familiar with her. She was a wise and witty woman, a very talented artist, and she is missed by all. And also offer condolences to the family of Ellis Wolfries, who was one of the pioneers on Amherst Island radio and had a live bluegrass and folk show and was a big promoter for live musicians here in the township. So condolences to both of those families.
Thank you. Any other announcements this evening from members? I just have one, and it's an announcement for what's coming up. The Odessa Fair this weekend. And it starts Friday night, but of course there's the parade, which some members of council will be attending as well and being in the parade. So just putting it out there for everyone in the community to enjoy themselves and take in the parade whenever they can, or the fair whenever they can. So if there's no others, I would entertain a motion to adjourn. Confirmatory. You're right. That's right. Keep me on the straight and narrow. Confirmatory bylaw. Do I have a mover for the confirmatory bylaw? Deputy Mayor.
I move that bylaw 2024-79 to confirm the proceedings of the Council of Loyalist Township be enacted and passed, and that the mayor and clerk be authorized to sign and seal.
So moved. Seconded by Councillor Parks. All in favor? Motion is passed. Now I'd entertain a motion to adjourn. Councillor Willis, seconded by Councillor Frederick. All in favor? Motion is passed. We are adjourned 7:13.